and we're going to get started. So welcome everybody. My name is Carol Sire. I'm the Program Coordinator at Active Monash. Active Monash, in conjunction with Monash University, are really thrilled to bring today's webinar to you. The presenters are provisional psychologists doing their training at Monash University. Before we start, in the spirit of reconciliation, the City of Monash acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. Are You OK Day is a great time to come together, check in with each other and ourselves. The theme is yellow, so I don't know if you've got something yellow going on, but the theme is yellow, so here it goes. This is my yellow. So we just wanted to have a nice big bright screen for you today. More than ever, really now, we need to be looking out for each other. So throughout September, Active Monash will be providing tips and tools on creating connections. So if you jump onto our Facebook pages or our websites, all the information is there, and we'll be continuing to provide information all throughout September. And sometimes we know how to look after ourselves, but we just need a reminder, and some extra tips can be really valuable to help us with that. We want to stay connected, and that's the theme of today. And that's very challenging, especially in this online environment. So we do need to sort of set some rules before I hand over to the experts. Just to make sure that all the presenters can be heard by everybody. So if you keep your mics on mute, cameras are optional. So if you don't want to be on camera, that's fine. Just turn your camera off. The session is recorded. So just be aware the session's recorded. So if you don't want to be on the recording, you can take your cameras off. And also if you don't want your name, because your name can appear on your, even with your camera off. If you don't want your name on that recording, you can go into your settings and change your name. So just be aware that the session is recorded today. So pretty much that's it. What we're going to do is have some questions. There's been lots of questions come through, and you'll probably find that as we go through the session, some of your questions may be answered. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And depending on time, there might be some time at the end, and then we can come off mute and ask questions if time allows. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'm going to pass you over to the professionals now. Thanks, guys. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Carol. I'm just going to get the presentation slides up. Just want to make sure. So is everyone able to see this?
Yes.
Yes. Perfect. All right. So, so today we're going to be talking about creating connections in COVID. We'd also like to acknowledge the people of the Kulin Nations whose land we're gathered today, and we pay respect to the elders past and present and emerging. So I'm Catherine, and I'm one of the provisional psychologists who I'm just going to be managing the slides today, and there'll be I'm helping with my fellow team members who are also going to be presenting. If they'd like to give a wave. Oh, so it's Kirsty, Jess, Diane, sorry, and Isabel. So we also are aware that there are a lot of questions. We will try to, some of these will hopefully be addressed in the presentation. We'll cover a lot of them. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will try and get to all of them if we can. And we'll also make a tip sheet at the end as well that will address some of those questions if we don't have time to get to all of them. And I think that's it for me. So I will just hand over the presentation to Belle, who will be talking about Are You OK and and what to do next after asking that question.
Thank you, Catherine, for introducing us and everyone for attending. Is the volume okay for now?
Yes, that's good.
So what is exactly Are You OK? So Are You OK is an Australian non-for-profit suicide prevention organisation founded by advertiser Gavin Larkin in 2009. It revolves around the slogan, "Are you okay?" and advocates for people to have conversations with others. So a conversation that can change lives. So you might be asking, what does that mean? Well, a simple question like, "Hey, are you okay?" Or "How are you going?" "What's happening for you?" Or even a little bit more like, "I've noticed you seem a bit flat lately." These are conversations that will open up to more conversations. Just think about this situation. Sometimes people might say that they are okay, or they might say, "I'm fine." "Yeah, I'm good." But you know from the way they look that they are not really okay in those situations. So what can we do then? We can be a little bit gentle with them and be present for them without asking too much questions or asking too much from them. Just being present for them shows that we care. Sometimes there might be a few times where we walk past a colleague, still on the same slide, where we see that person might be looking a bit flat or deflated or looking a bit sad maybe. But we also haven't had the courage to go up and ask them if they're fine. So in that situation, we might feel ill-equipped to manage conversations if they reply that they're not okay. So what do? We can ask open-ended questions like, "Can you tell me more about it?" That will help to open up even more conversations. So what are the steps that follows through after that, you may ask? Well, as the slide says, we have to listen, and then we could paraphrase and we could check in. So I'll take you through to see what those are. So first of all, we could make eye contact and let them know that you are really here for them. So giving your colleagues, friends, family time to talk about what's really bothering them without interrupting. This helps to open up conversations and share that you care through giving your time and attention. Many times it is just precious to be able to share what is on our minds to someone. Alternatively, you can also paraphrase what they say, as it shows your active listening skills to them. You might ask, what is active listening and what's listening? Well, paraphrasing helps in active listening in the way, and an example of it could be, you can say, "I'm hearing you're struggling with difficult emotions." Or you can say to that person, "Wow, this sounds like it's a tough time for you, and I can see you're feeling some pain." Initially, you might feel nervous to do so, but once you're more familiar with it, it might get easier. Sometimes people also hijacks the conversation. Perhaps you might have that friend who jumps into their own conversation after 2 seconds that you started sharing about your situation. Everyone's experiences are different. That's why we need to listen to them closely. Honoring each person's experience, we can try to park our own experience and look at theirs with more attention. If you're unsure of what the best response is to the situation, avoid giving advice or telling them what they should or should not do. Instead, you could ask specific questions to show your interest in their problems. For example, you could ask, "What about that project that is affecting you?" Or, "How is your family coping during this lockdown?" Or you may ask, "How are you coping in this lockdown?" Besides active listening, it is also good to check in. Checking in a few days later to see how they're going. You can do this by giving them a phone call or connecting on Zoom like what we're doing now. You could talk to them at work. So you could say things like, "Oh, I just would like to check in with you if that's all right." Or you could say things like, "I'm just dropping in to see how you're going, just to see if things have changed for you, things have gotten better or worse." And when you listen to their response, try to use active listening skills that we discussed above and see if it makes a difference. We know that making a change can be difficult, and if they haven't made any changes, it is okay. Just keep being present for them keep encouraging them and know that you are available for them and they can talk to you. And just simply staying in touch would show that you care. The next slide is about, all right, so what happens if I'm not okay? And how do I even know if I'm not okay? And is it okay to be not okay? Well, there are some signs which tell us when we're not feeling too great. Firstly, we might experience some physical pain. That might look like headaches, stomach aches, or body aches. We might also experience some emotional pain, such as feeling flat, low mood states. You might be easily angry or feeling a little bit more irritable. So what does this mean for our thinking brains and our thinking thoughts? We might be unable to concentrate at work, being more forgetful at home, or worrying more often when we're waiting for the bus or, driving even. This in turn has an impact on our behaviors. As a result, we may be more reactive rather than responsive to situations. So what does reactive looks like? It may look like you might be crying for no reason some days, or you're just having an angry outburst, which is unlike your character at all. You might be a bit more argumentative over small things. Sometimes we also may find ourselves in the position of over-complaining, and you're wondering what's happening to me. I'm not that sort of person. On the other spectrum, you might also be in the position where you're feeling that general sense of burden, that general sense of giving up and not wanting to do much, that general sense of resigning to what's this been happening. Well, what does that actually mean? This means that we are in a stage of passivity. So a current example that I can share with you is we are in a stage of lockdown at the moment, and we are not allowed to go to the gym, to socialize, and to exercise. And so we accepted the fact that, all right, we can't go to the gym, we can't exercise, it's all too bad, and we leave it at that. But what might be a more helpful and responsive action that we can take to brighten our day and to be back in control again, to move away from that sense of helplessness, to be more in control, might be coming up with a creative solution where we can still exercise in the comforts of our home and still enjoy what we used to do. So what can we do when we're not okay? Here are some steps we can take to look after ourselves. Firstly, we can take extra time for ourselves and recognize that we can't always do everything perfectly. Perhaps we are not in the ideal situation that we want to be, or we may not be achieving the goals that we hope to have achieved by now. I encourage you to give ourselves permission to be compassionate and gentle to our needs, while accepting of our current circumstances, knowing that it may just be only temporary. It is important to give ourselves permission to be not okay. For some, it is vital to find pleasurable activities. For others, it might be being open to receiving help from other people. These include friends, family, or even professional interventions. In response to COVID-19, Medicare has provided extra 10 sessions to be included in a person's mental health care plan. And this can be organized at your GP's office. This means that you can get a total of 20 psychology sessions a year under the Medicare rebate. It is important to recognize that what works for you may not work for someone else. So working for you may not work for someone else. Hence the question, I invite you to spend a few moments to consider what works for you. So there'll be 2 top bubbles that pops up on the screen, just for you to reflect for yourself. So what works for you? So I invite you to have a few moments to think about that question, just to ponder and reflect. What is that special thing that would recharge your self-care battery to full charge? It could be an item, an activity, a person, a thought, or even your faith. It could be a 1.5-hour chat with someone you love, or it could be a quick 5 minutes cup of tea while walking or looking at nature. So I'll leave you with that thought to consider what works for you. And I'll pass on the presentation to my peers. She will take over on why connection is good for us. I'll pass on to Jess.
Hi everyone, I'm Jess. Lovely to meet everyone through Zoom today. It's sunshine outside, which is positive. Alrighty, so why is connecting with others so good for us? So connecting with others improves both our physical health and our psychological well-being, and it actually strengthens our immune system. So when we're connecting with others, whether that be online through social media or actually going for a walk with someone outside, it releases endorphins, and these endorphins reduce stress levels and brighten our mood. Having a strong connection with others also lowers our levels of depression and anxiety, and it increases our self-esteem, empathy, trust, and cooperation with others. A TED Talk by Susan Parker, which will be included in the helpful links included in this seminar towards the end, spoke about having strong connections with others actually increases our chances of living longer. So looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs here, towards the bottom you can see our physiological needs, including basic needs like breathing, food, water, sleep and clothing. But then you can see in that model as well, family and social stability and friendships are also very high on that hierarchy of needs. They're very important to us, and connection with others is really beneficial to our health. It's one of our fundamental needs as humans. Next slide. So what does connecting with others mean? Often we think it's a heart-to-heart talk where we share our deep thoughts and emotions, but it can be as simple as a friendly chat with the butcher or someone at the supermarket. Sharing a good laugh and sharing funny stories with your friends and family members, or even when you're going for your hour walk during COVID, smiling and waving at people as you walk past them. You know, there's talk by Susan Parker spoke about simply making eye contact with other people as you walk by them can release endorphins that brighten your mood. These can also include a simple text and phone call to check in with other people. You know, make sure that the people that are close to you and involved in your life are doing okay. And if they're not doing okay, how can you help? What is your role in that? It can also be as simple as writing a letter. Let's make it old school again. You know, forget the texting, write a letter, send it, and reflect on how that makes you feel. Next slide. So what are some fun ways to connect during COVID? You know, we can't just rock up at our friend's house at the moment, but there are other ways to connect with people online. So at the moment, Facebook Messenger games are really trending. So you don't have to have Facebook in order to have Messenger. You can just download it straight onto your iPhone through the Apple Store, or if you've got an Android, through the Play Store. These games include like Battleships and Pictionary. I'm sure you've played the actual hard copy games with your friends at one point, and Scrabble. All of these can be a fun way of connecting online. There are also other options out there. There is a computer software called Steam, which you can download straight onto your computer. And popular games that are trending at the moment include games like Fall Guys, where you're playing around as this little Teletubby avatar and you're running obstacle courses with your friends. It can be quite fun to try beat your friends across the finish line, or even push them away from the finish line as a bit of a laugh, like, okay, if I'm not going to make it, you're not going to make it either. There are other games include games like Among Us, where you're in a group of 10 in a spaceship somewhere, and one of you is an imposter. So you have to work together to guess who the imposter is, and that could be one of your friends. Other games include games like Jackbox parties, where it's like an online version of Pictionary. So you have to draw what appears on the screen and have a laugh at people's lack of drawing abilities through their iPad. Other fun ways to connect online, it's actually really lovely to see people's creativity coming out during COVID. Okay, I can't walk over to my friend's house and have a cup of coffee, or I can't sit down and watch a movie with some of my friends. So Netflix Party allows multiple users on Netflix to tune in and watch movies together, which is really cute. People have also come up with strategies to improve their fitness. For example, okay, I can't go with my friend to the gym at the moment, so instead I'm going to go for a walk or a run and record how far I've gone through Strava. So you can download this app through the Apple iStore, the Android Play Store, and you can cheer on each other's victories. You can also get a bit competitive and go, okay, my friend just walked 5 kilometers today. I'm going to go out there and walk 6. There are other ways to connect online as well. For example, you've got video calling apps like Zoom, what we're on right now. There are also others which include House Party, WhatsApp, and Messenger. Another way to connect online is when you're in these video calling apps such as Zoom or Messenger, people are going onto YouTube and simply YouTube searching online yoga videos, and then they're videoing each other trying to get in the position of these online yoga instructors. It can be quite good for your mental health, your physical health, and just having a laugh with your friends who can't quite get into the position that the instructor's telling them to get into. Now there's just a quick video which shows you an example of one of the games on Steam at the moment called Fall Guys. I'm winning the race. Oh no! Climb! Climb! No! For example, that game is on Steam at the moment. If you're interested in getting games like that to play with your friends, you can Google Steam through a Google search engine, and it's generally one of the first links that pop up, and then you can follow the prompts to install it onto your computer. It's a real laugh, and I definitely had a good time, even though I'm not very good at it.
All right, so we'd like to thank you all for connecting with us today, and just the fact that so many of us have all come here together to connect shows just how important it is for us all, particularly during these times. So we'd just like to go through the take-home message before opening up to general questions. So a conversation can change lives. We've covered how to check in when someone isn't okay, including actively listening to what they have to say, and encouraging action, and then checking in with them again later. We've also covered the importance of checking in, of connection, and that it not only helps us to feel better, but also has some pretty fantastic health benefits as well. And then we've also shared a couple of fun little ways for everyone to connect online, things like using Strava, House Party, and Steam. So now we'd like to move on to the general questions section. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask us?
If you want to put your hand up, there's some hands up. I'll see if I can see them. Can you see the hands up, Kirsty?
Let me see if I can check from this screen.
Margaret's got. Margaret, if you take your hand self off mute and ask your question.
Yeah, go for it.
How do one deal with a person who always hijack?
Sorry, Margaret, what was your question there?
How do we handle a person who always interrupts and hijack when I'm talking to somebody to help?
Okay. I might start, and then if any of my peers want to jump in. I think it can be really important, and it is often the case that people, they seem to be talking just for something to say, or they're listening to us just because they have something to say. And I think sometimes, while we do need to give people the chance to talk to us too, when it is really important for us to be heard, sometimes we need to express that to someone. And it could simply be saying in advance, giving someone the heads up that I actually have something I really would like to discuss with you today. And I'm hoping for a few minutes of your time just to get some things off my chest, and then inviting them to respond later. So you might say, look, I just would really like you to listen for a few minutes, and then please ask, then tell me exactly what you're thinking. And just hopefully you can like open up the conversation to be a two-way street.
Yes, thank you.
What else has worked for some of my peers? Because you guys might also have ideas.
Oh, I think what you said is really good, Kirsty. That sense of preamble really sets the scene and letting somebody else know of your needs, because sometimes people do not really know what we need until we actually share with them, and they might be really responsive after hearing what we have to say. So thanks, Kirsty. That was good.
Beautiful.
Is there any more questions? I know that a lot of questions came through, so if you want to put them in the chat or just put your hand up, and it's a good time to go through those questions now. Can't see anyone's hands up.
Yeah, I have my hands up here.
We have, is it Ponnier?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
Has his hand up?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. But see, most of our seniors, we are unable to attend today. We have about 300 of them. Is there any possibility you could share your slides so we could put it in our newsletter so people can read it as a kind of a, they can digest of their own, because the message is very simple. So it's good for someone to think through. If that is possible, I would appreciate. Thank you.
Fantastic. We can certainly do that. We'll send through all our slides. There's also a section at the end that has some useful resources. So that are a couple of, places to reach out if you're having, if you are having any difficulties, and also just a few different fun activities. So we'll send those through to Carol at the end of today's presentation so everyone can have a copy.
So there's a question just came through, which I think you just answered. What resources are available to us if we have someone who needs more help with dealing with negative emotions? So as Christy said, they're going to put a bit of a question and answers together that we'll share on our pages. Also, if you go to the Active Monash website, we have a section called Creating Connections where we're putting a lot of tips and resources up there. So if you go into that section, you'll probably find a whole lot of information in answer to some of these questions. But also this is being recorded, so it will also go up on the website so you can re-watch it, or you might be able to pass it on to someone else that you think would benefit from watching it. And that's a great way to start a conversation as well, like share the video with them, get them to watch it, and then maybe it leads into a conversation. There's another question here: how to get a good night's sleep and stop worrying?
This is one that I always have to deal with. I can be up at night. And just recently there's been like certain techniques that personally work for me. And of course they might not work for anyone else, but a lot of the time mindfulness type activities will really stop me and bring me back into the moment. And they've taken it a step further now, and it's imagining like my safe and happy place. And for me, that's down at the ocean with the wind in my hair, smelling the salt. So often at night when I'm lying in bed, if I've got a lot in my mind and it's been a busy day, I try and just have a few deep breaths for a while and get myself into that visual space where I feel calm and collected. Of course, that doesn't always work, but for me, it's such a nice way to bring myself down without, being able to stay in bed and stay relaxed. And it has been very useful. I also know there's lots of things on Spotify so that you can do both like mindfulness meditations, and there's also sleep stories as well. So sometimes a little thing like a sleep story and something distracting, hearing someone tell you a story about something that's unrelated in a calming manner, that can be a nice little distraction technique to try as well.
Okay, awesome. There's another good question here. And also, before I ask that question, Andrew from Monash Psychology has put a link in the chat. So some of you that were just asking for some extra resources, if you look in the chat, there's a link Andrew's just put in for some self-help programs. Another question here, how do you say what you're thinking and when you don't want people to judge you?
And one of my peers want to jump in for this one?
I suppose finding that person in your life that you know loves you for who you are and won't judge you, that can be helpful. Also, if you're looking for resources, getting the 20 sessions through Medicare with a psychologist who's going to sit there and listen to you and not judge you can be very helpful as well.
Definitely. So the first port of call with that's always seeing your GP, who can have a bit of a chat to you and spend some time and write a referral if you both think that's necessary. And I also find that for me, when personally, when I feel that I'm being judged, it's because the thing I'm trying to communicate to someone else is really important to me and means a lot. And I often find talking to the person and expressing that what I'm going to bring up to you might not, you might not agree, you might not see eye to eye with me, but this is something important that's meaningful to me. And a lot of people will take that, particularly if it's, someone in your support network, hopefully would be able to put aside their judgment or at least be there with you and be empathetic in that moment if you have told them that you do just need someone to listen at the moment. Definitely.
Awesome. Andrew's just also let everyone know in the chat that they have fact sheets and resources which you may find handy for other people that you're reaching out to. I might just ask a question here, if you don't mind. So just around some of the questions that have come through. So obviously in this environment, and I mean always, but in this environment maybe more so than ever, there is a lot of people struggling with mental health issues and being isolated. But what would you say is the best thing to support the people that are actually supporting those people? So they may not be dealing with mental health issues themselves, but they're constantly supporting someone else, maybe in their family or their friends that is. And how do we support those people so that they can continue to be supportive to the people that need a little bit extra help?
It's a great question. I think it goes back to Belle was talking about self-care and how we all need to look after ourselves. You guys remember the self-care battery that she had? And it's almost, it takes time for us to notice and realize when our own battery is being depleted. But that often when that's happened, that's when we can't take care of others. But things like there are self-care plans that we can put into place, which could be something as, even if it's something small, because some of us are so busy, particularly if we're looking after others, but it could be something small like having 5 minutes at the end of the day just to sit down with no screens, computer technology, if that's what it is for you. But sometimes it is often about just having that little chance to yourself to check in, sit there and ask myself, am I actually okay today? What are my needs too? Are they being met? And this is certainly not selfish at all, because yes, we need to be able to look after ourselves so we can actually help someone else first.
Awesome.
I'll just add to that one as well, like what Kirsty was saying about self-care. There's also the concept of being compassionate and kind to yourself. It's called self-compassion. And when you take the time to be gentle and accepting of yourself, and that gives you a lot of grace to go through and to support others too.
Great.
Okay to take a break when we need it, if we can allow ourselves.
Okay, there's just another question here. In this time of crisis, a lot of people can start to believe conspiracy theories and harmful concepts, which we've all seen. How can you support someone that's going through this?
I think it can be so hard in something like this, particularly when there's a lot of misinformation out there. I think as soon as you go online, you could be finding out information and you don't know where that's coming from. So I know in our family, as much as possible, we sometimes just have to turn the news off. It's important to be informed and to understand what's happening in the world. But if it's getting to that stage where it really is stopping you from being okay and is becoming overwhelming, sometimes it is important just to disconnect from outside media. And perhaps you can ask a loved one, maybe if they can check from a reputable source. So I know that maybe going onto the Department of Health and Human Service website, they're a great place to get your information about corona, and you can trust that they are going to be factual there, rather than going to online news sources or even just Facebook, where it's all opinions and can get very overwhelming at times.
Definitely. Might be worth blocking some constant negativity on Facebook if you are, if that's your source of...
things start to make a bit more sense. That's something definitely to look into as well.
And if you find yourself on like that part of YouTube that goes into conspiracy theories, you've gone down that YouTube hole and you can't seem to get out, asking yourself, how is this helping and supporting me right now? You know, perhaps instead of focusing on YouTube and Facebook, going to some reliable news sources.
So this one says, how do you change the attitude in some communities visiting a psychologist? So in some situations, people would feel visiting a psychologist is considered demeaning. So how do you change that attitude?
Well, I think it's so important to recognize that right now, so many of us aren't actually okay. We are really struggling, and it's, it's an awful way for the world to be. But if we can be kind on ourselves for not feeling okay, perhaps we can also be kind to others who aren't okay, and to commend each other for seeking and supporting help. There are also different ways to get help as well. So I know these days, like Beyond Blue, if you go onto their website, not only are you able to call people and speak to them, but they have chat functions, so you can text message them, and they also have online forums. So these might not work for everyone, but it's also just a different way to engage with someone that you know is a good source of support. Beyond Blue are going to be employing counsellors and people that can, help you out when you're in a crisis. But at least they do have quite a few different methods to do it. So if you don't feel comfortable going and seeing your GP to go and speak with a psychologist, then maybe an online forum at a safe space could be a good place to start.
Awesome. Sorry, I was just going to post a... someone's just shared a link. I'm just posting it in the chat for you. Has anyone else got any questions? Has anyone else got any questions? I'm not sure. I can't see everyone for hands up, but you can put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself if you want to ask a question now.
Yeah, definitely happy for anyone to jump in.
I know there was a lot of questions that came through pre-webinar, but we might have answered a lot of them. Andrew's just put in the chat, unfortunately, seeing a psychologist still has a stigma. Interestingly, once some has had the experience of counselling, they come back for more. So I suppose that's just around trying to get that initial step going. Gemma, do you want to unmute yourself? Is that a question, Gemma?
Yes. Can
Go
you
for
hear
it.
me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, no worries. My question is, what can you do if you feel that a loved one or someone that you're speaking to may be in danger of potentially taking their own life?
Good question.
Definitely a great question. And this can be such an anxiety-provoking situation to be in if you're concerned about a loved one. And I think these steps that Are You Okay have outlined, that asking questions, listening, encouraging action and checking in are very important. And that gives us a way to speak to someone and to start that conversation. But of course, not necessarily, some people aren't going to always just open up straight away and let you know what's going on. So I would definitely, there are ways that you can seek support as well, and that could be talking to your own GP about things to do. There are, emergency services, things like Lifeline that you could call that might also be able to talk you through the process. But of course, it is up to this person to, to feel comfortable and comfortable enough to talk. So personally, I'd be focusing on being there for them and being supportive, letting them know that whenever they're able to talk, you'll be there if you can, and that you will provide that safe space to talk. Sometimes just knowing that we're supported and someone out there loves and cares for us can, be so powerful. So that's how I would start, with making sure that person knows that you can be that person for them and they can open up to you. What do you guys think? Some of my peers, what would you do in this situation?
I suppose suicide. Sorry, you go, Isabel.
Oh no, that's all right. I was just trying to say that Andrew has popped in some things as well on the screen to say that they can call the crisis assessment and treatment, and just to put them in touch with someone that can follow up with them. And also the suicide assist that I think Jess was about to comment on. Those are really good places that they can seek help, that are specialized and that are familiar around suicide prevention and assistance in that.
I think for most of us in this area, at Monash Hospital, there's an associated unit called the Crisis and Assistance Triage Team. That actually may have been their old name, but they're a service that Andrew was talking about here in the chat as well, that you can call if you're with someone who is immediate risk of harm, and they will give an assessment over the phone. They will support you through what's happening. And they will encourage you to stay there with your friend until they're able to arrive and offer some assistance on site.
And Andrew's just popped in the chat, feeling suicidal is a very lonely experience. Connecting with someone can reduce this loneliness. And also, I know talking about suicide can be a very daunting and scary topic, but actually opening up that line of conversation with that person, talking about perhaps some of the suicidal thoughts they're having and having them share them with you can be a very powerful experience as well, because they suddenly don't feel alone in having these thoughts. Sharing them with someone else can have a sense of relief to them as well. And opening up that line of conversation, hey, it doesn't sound like you're doing very well, you're having these types of thoughts. How do you feel about going to your doctor to get some extra help?
Awesome. There was another question back here. How do you divert a very negative conversation about the current situation?
I think that's a really nice question to ask, because sometimes people can get caught up in a whole issue and focus on the negatives. And at times like this, we can also look at what might be coming from it. Like some of us would like to practice being grateful for things that happen to us that might be nice. It's called a gratitude journal. So just highlighting what are the special things that come out from it. I know it can be quite difficult, so I'll speak from my own experience. Like, this lockdown has given me time to spend with my family, and having that time with them was quite privileged for me, because being so busy in life, work and studies, I don't have that luxury. And this has come up for me and something that I treasured so much. Without this lockdown, I don't think I would have that much time with them. And it made me reflect and ponder upon how my life has been and what I can do in the future to change to the way that it might be better for me. So perhaps when you think about a negative situation, are there parts of it that you feel have come out for you that you haven't thought of that might be in a positive way? So it's a good point to reflect and consider. It may or may not be, but sometimes through reflection, we get nuggets of gold that we didn't have the time to do before. Does anyone want to chime in on that?
I think as well with this that, nobody in this world's a mind reader, and no one knows how we're feeling. So just say you're talking to a friend who's in, a bit of a negative place about COVID at the moment, which is completely understandable, but it's bringing you down. It can be very helpful to say that to them as well, not in a bad way, but just say, actually, I'm also struggling with this right now, and our conversations have been, making me feel a bit more anxious. Do you reckon for the next half an hour we could talk about and you could pop in, you know, something fun, you know, oh, like I went for a walk yesterday and I saw something beautiful, or a funny story. But I think just remembering that, yeah, we're not mind readers, and that often somebody who's in a negative space isn't trying to bring anyone down by that, but they just might need reminded of where we're at as well. And
yeah, thank you. Andrew just mentioned that we see what we look for, so sometimes we need to be reminded to look for and see the positive things that are around us, which is very true. And I think for most people, our lives have changed a lot, and a lot of people working from home now, but you can always find a positive, like there's a positives from the situation as well. So it's just making sure that we look for them and that we remember to see them every day. Like I know for myself, I'm not a morning person, and how good is it, like getting up and 5 minutes later you're in your office working. So you get that extra time sleeping that we used to be commuting. So that's a positive to the whole situation. And I'm sure if we look in our day, we can find positives of the changes in our situations as well as the negatives. Is there anyone else that would like to say anything or add anything? We might just do maybe one more question before we wrap this session up. Is there any? I can't really see all the hands up. Has anyone got their hands up, or does anyone would like to ask a question? If you've got your hand up, just maybe unmute yourself, because I can't see everyone's faces.
I think that the last question from Akila. He's asking,
oh, yes.
if everyone at home, you know, I can feel sometimes it can create a lot of tension, and how do you manage family dynamics during a lockdown? So it's a really good question, because I think a lot of us experience that in family situations. One way that I can suggest for you to consider is to having a separate space for you, a space that it's your go-to space where you can get involved and to be away from the family. So that's your safe space. It could be a small corner, small table, or it could be a pot of plant where you spend some time with it, and to just with your mind, spirit and body, to move away from that family situation, which might be tense, into a space that you think and you know is only just for you, and have a cup of tea, debrief with yourself for 5 minutes, and enjoy that quiet moment. So that's just one option. There's a few other options as well, you know, about like de-escalating the conversations and trying to be patient with each other, or things like that. I wonder what other people have to say on that.
So just communicating needs in the family is very important too. Particularly, I know for me, if I have lots on and I'm really stressed, I need to tell everyone else that, all right, so tonight, if it's possible, you know, I'll come and talk to you when I can. And if you do have people in your family that you're able to negotiate and share with, then that's really important. So then you do recognize when each other do need to take a little break. And as well, just taking advantage of that, you know, what is it? It's now nearly 2 hours of allotted exercise we can have from next week. So if it's possible to get out for a walk and recharge the batteries, this can be a great little quick way of just getting some time alone.
I think it's about being honest to what you're feeling and being respectful to what you're feeling, but also respectful to what the other person is feeling as well, and calling it out and managing that in a very supportive and respectful way. I think that would help a lot.
Awesome. So Diane was just saying, you can consider that everyone in the family has their chill out space. So once the family member is in their space, everyone knows that they need a break and maybe need a check-in once they come out. That's a good idea, so we can all get some personal space. We might leave it there. And Andrew's just said families need to have a bank of goodwill, so that if there is a tension or conflict, there is enough goodwill to maintain those relationships, and doing fun activities can increase the amount of goodwill between everybody. And then someone else has just said that someone shared a great link, which they've put in the chat there, called Super Friend and COVID support. So we might just finish up, I just want to make sure that, you know, that like if this has brought up any emotions for you, or you're not sure where to get support, that you do have a look back through the chat, and we also do have those links on our website. So there's the first thing to do would be to check in with your GP and get support. There's Beyond Blue, and there's Lifeline. You can contact those emergency crisis centres if you need support urgently. I hope that everyone's got something out of this. I really want to thank Isabel, Jess and Kirsty for their presentation. We really were so lucky to have a collaboration with Monash University to bring these sorts of things to you. Someone's also said Monash has support services as well, of course, so that Monash, I assume that means the Monash Council. It's a beautiful sunny day, so one of the first things that was said was go for a walk and try to smile at as many people that you walk past as possible, because not only will that make their day, some people might not see another person for the whole day, and that smile could change their whole day, and I'm sure it will make you feel great as well. So thank you so much. If you still want to add questions to the chat, we'll try and get some answers up on our webpage. Thank you all for joining us. Take care, have a fantastic day, and stay connected with us through our Active at Home page.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You might need to wave and smile with the mask.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the mask. I forgot about the
physical smile too.
You smile, you can see it in your eyes as well, can't you?
Thank you.
Say hello.
Draw a smile on your mask.
I like that. I've saved the chat, so I'm going to add some of those resources to those